Today, Dr. Lydia and myself want to welcome Dr. Mickey Bernstein to our office. Dr. Bernstein is a cosmetic dentist retired after 42 years of private practice at Germantown Dental Group, where he changed lives by allowing the true self to shine through one smile. Dr. Bernstein attended the University of Tennessee College of Dentistry and is a graduate of the L.D. Pankey Institute of Advanced Dental Education. He's a distinguished member of numerous dental organizations and has served in leadership roles, including as president of both the American and Tennessee Academies of Cosmetic Dentistry and the Memphis Dental Study Club. In his retirement, he continues to teach future generations of cosmetic dentists at the University of Tennessee as an adjunct professor and as a dental consultant to progressive dental practices in the dental industry to help them achieve their dreams, advising on cosmetic design, branding strategy, and practice development. He also volunteers to provide free dental work through programs like Give Back a Smile, the Memphis Mobile Dental Clinic, and most recently, the Mid-South Mission of Mercy. His Bernstein Dental Consulting Company, founded alongside his wife Diane, continues his mission to help and mentor fellow dentists with coaching, consulting, team training, systems development, and strategic planning. You can find them on the website Bernstein, Bernstein, dentalconsulting.com. He is also a partner in 2D Investments with Doug Earthman as a streamlined vehicle to generate wealth through real estate investment. That's 2, D investments.com. So today we're going to go through your personal journey, your professional journey to help you create your own hypothetical dental conference. And we are so thankful that you're here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I got one real important, serious question for both of you first, though, before we get started. And that would be, do you think Taylor Swift will win the Super Bowl?
I think she's going to be the biggest and best part of any Super Bowl ever.
I think she's already won the Super Bowl. We want to start something about your background and your family and your dental journey. If you have something you want to share with us.
Well, I started out as a child. That's what Bill Cosby used to say. And went to White Station High School here in Memphis, and I was not a great student. I didn't make bad grades, but I didn't try very hard, and I didn't try hard the first part of college. And then I decided maybe I better make something of my life, and started trying, and eventually got into dental school. And I was so honored when I got accepted to dental school that I think that was a life-changing moment. That I knew I needed to behave, follow the rules of society, and do my best, and treat people right. And I've tried to live that in my actions ever since. I got out of dental school, and like most of my friends, I started up a practice with one assistant and one treatment room, and designed it to look like everybody else's. And that was just fine because everybody else was doing okay. One person in particularly influenced me that I visited was, and we're sitting pretty close to his office right now, is a gentleman that was a little further ahead of me named Dwayne Gaither. And I visited his office, and he was doing something different. And he was doing complete exams and giving people full mouth options to take care of their health, and doing interviews in a private office rather than just entering through the hygiene chair. And so I mimicked him a little bit and started out that way. So fast forward a few years, and I knew there was a better way, and at the encouraging of some friends, I borrowed some money and enrolled in the Pankey Institute. and was pretty much blown away by a better way to treat patients, treat mouth, communicate with patients, do restorative dentistry. Cosmetics wasn't even a thing yet.
At what point was this in your practice that you started?
This was about 4 or 5 years into my practice. And I liked it enough that I went every year. Every January, I would go for a week until I completed their entire curriculum.
Wow.
And interesting, one of the teachers there was a man named Peter Dawson. He hadn't started his own institute yet. That's how old I am. And I want to come back in a moment and talk about the speech that Dr. Pankey gave to my class in his 90s, my first time there, because it affected me. But for now, I went along, did an occasional full mouth reconstruction a year, did a lot more crowns and bridges, and saw a lot of children, as a matter of fact, because I guess back in dental school, the head of the department there really made me enjoy children. So I saw a lot of children in the beginning. And I looked up about 20 years, almost 20 years into practice, and I was a little bored. It's like I could do crowns and fillings with my eyes closed. And had been doing a lot of real estate developing and investing really my whole adult life. And I decided I was going to get out of dentistry and become a real estate developer. And so I recruited a young man out of dental school named John Whittemore, and he started visiting our office. And about the same time, I saw a blurb in a newsletter that the best way to make your practice worth more was to get a cosmetic component. And the best place to learn it was the AACD. And here's the toll-free number at that time. For everybody out there, the way to contact them now is aacd.com. But I joined, and later that year I went to the first meeting there and was completely blown away at the beautiful dentistry I was seeing. And even though I had been doing some veneers and some bonding, I realized that my work really didn't measure up. And I immediately enrolled in their accreditation process and kind of fell in love with dentistry all over again through cosmetic dentistry. And then 3 years later, I was accredited in cosmetic dentistry and got very involved in that organization, the AACD, and it kind of became my home organization. And I got on the committee that planned their scientific session and eventually was chairman of that. And then a few years later, I was on the board. And then a few years later, I was the president and got to travel all over the country and the world on their behalf, which was a lot of fun. Met a lot of interesting and influential people through that and met lots and lots of speakers, some of which we'll talk about today.
Was John Whittemore, did he do all that with you at that time? Was he already with you? Or did you do that on your own and while he was starting to become an associate?
I really started that while he was still in dental school, and we were talking about him coming to work in our office. And interesting, a little fast forward a few years, he was in the office, and I had committed to him that he could buy the practice, and I live up to my commitments. So even though I was having a good time again, I did sell it to him, half of it to him, 5 years later. And then another dentist, Todd Gruen, came in a year after that and joined us and bought the other half. And I became their associate and worked for them for 14 years.
14 years.
Wow.
Yes, which was fine and a lot of fun and they were great bosses. So I ended up working 40 years and retired at age 70, 6 years ago.
Was that a date you put on yourself prior to when you said I'm when I hit 70, or was it just did it just I have a question about that later, but did that just say, you know what, I'm done? Or was that like, you know what, I have friends that were like, when I'm 65, I'm done. And I'm like, no, not me, you know.
I had a plan to retire at 65, but plans change. And during that time, we had a recession that lasted from 2008 to 2018. And so I kept working because I needed to replenish my retirement fund, and they were glad to have me there. So that was a win-win for all of us.
Absolutely.
So along the way, I've always been interested in real estate, and I sold the building to John Whittemore, and I did a tax-free exchange and bought into an industrial park, and I've invested in apartment buildings and condos at the beach, and some were winners, some of them were losers. Currently I have 4 rental properties in Germantown and Collierville, Tennessee, and still own that industrial park, a share of it, and own part of a motel in Lake Tahoe, and part of a apartment building in South Carolina, and part of some marijuana farms in Maryland and Illinois. So that's what I've done personally. And then, of course, you mentioned we also have a company called 2D Investments that helps other people invest in those kind of things. And that's a lot of fun, too, just helping people grow their wealth. I'd like to back up a moment now and talk about, while we're at this juncture, before we go on, about what Dr. Pankey said when he walked into my class, and he was probably roughly 93 years old, and occasionally saw patients still. They used to joke that when Dr. Pankey put on his white coat, the staff would go, uh-oh, somebody's going to pay a lot of money. But Dr. Pankey gave the speech and talked about how he practiced routine dentistry in Kentucky as a young man in the 30s. And mostly he pulled teeth and did dentures. And he felt like he was depressed and didn't like it and thought there was a better way to do that. And he sold his practice and decided he was moving to this new community in Florida called Coral Gables and was going to start all over again. And he got in his old car and was driving by himself along those rural roads in Kentucky, and he's thought about his mom, and he had pulled all her teeth and made her dentures, and he pulled over by the side of the road and cried. And he made a deal with himself right then. He was never going to pull a tooth again. And he said he lived up to it. There were some teeth that had to come out, but he referred them to a surgeon to take them out. But that affected me because I made a deal with myself that week that I was never going to pull a tooth that could be saved. And I've lived up to that. And many, many people came in to see me wanting their tooth out, and I'd say, well, you can save your tooth. You need a root canal and a crown.
Right.
And they'd say, I've been told that before, but I don't want to save it. I can't afford it. And I would go so far as to say, I'll make a deal with you. If you'll pay for the crown, I'll pay for the root canal. I just want to save your tooth. It means that much to me. And if they still said, no, I want my tooth out, and I go, then I'll refer you to somebody that'll take your tooth out. And some of those people came back to see me anyway, and some of them would continue to go to a dentist that would take their teeth out, but they would refer other people to me who wanted to save their teeth. So I built a whole practice around saving teeth.
It's amazing. It's great.
So that's still possible for everybody out there.
I think that's great. And to add to that, as I will always tell people, like, there's so many ways. This is one of the reasons I wanted to do a podcast and talk to people, is that there's so many ways to do things that work the way you want to practice. It's within dentistry. There's just all these different ways to do things, and if you make up your mind that I'm going to save teeth, and I'm okay seeing the patient walk out the door because I think that this is going to be my best way of treating this patient, and I feel confident in that, then I think it's admirable that you would just let somebody go business-wise to somebody else for your beliefs. I think that's great.
And I think everybody should be that way. They should know what their values are, what their standards are. And another example would be a lot of patients out there don't want x-rays. And I'm sure you have those conversations every day with people that why you need to take a few x-rays. And I kind of got to one of my standards where we're going to take appropriate x-rays, not 2 bite wings every 6 months or a panoramic every 3 years, but appropriate for that person based on what's going on in their mouth. If they've had a lot of radiation treatment, yeah, we're going to slow it down. I don't want to over-radiate them. But yes, I would let them go too. And if they said, no, I just definitely don't want x-rays, I'd say, I tell you what, let's don't take them this time. But please don't make another appointment if you're not willing to let me take them the next time.
Right. That's great. That's part of what I've learned working here is finding out what makes me comfortable as a practitioner and how that lines up with what the patient wants and needs and finding a good fit between those things. That's great.
I want to back up a minute on your story. Well, both you and Dr. Lydia are White Station, Memphis Public School successes.
Go Spartans.
And you said it was an honor when you got into dental school. At what point did you decide, hey, I want to go to dental school? Was it maybe your family saying, hey, did you have somebody that said, hey, you'd be really good at this? How did that come about?
My childhood dentist, I'm not going to say his name because I'm going to say that he wasn't a very good dentist and he wasn't polite. My mom liked him, but he didn't. I think all 4 of the children got 2 fillings every time they came in till all their back teeth were filled.
Oh,
If you can put 2 and 2 together there.
yes.
And so I wouldn't have ever been interested in dentistry. But at one point, when I was probably 19, I had some, probably what amounted to a mild case of nug. And I didn't want to go to him. And I sought out a very professional periodontist that also had a general practice named Sidney Friedman. And he was the ultimate professional. So he showed me what a very professional practice looked like. And so that was a good example for me. Though he really wasn't that encouraging to me either. He'd say, well, you got to make really good grades to get into dental school. And I wasn't making really good grades because I didn't try very hard. But somewhere along the line, halfway through college, I started trying and, made mostly A's the last 2/3 of dental school and did it. And I tested well. So that got me in.
And then were you hooked? Like when you got into clinicals in dental school, were you like, oh yeah, this is where I need to be. This is what I'm
Not initially. I actually pictured myself as an orthopedic surgeon and applied to 13 medical schools and did not get in. And applied to dental school as an alternative. And I started, and I made pretty good grades at first. We were on the quarter system that first quarter and made an A in dental anatomy, where we were carving wax, teeth out of wax. And I went, I think I probably found the right place for me, and never did think about medical school again.
Never did.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Doc?
It wasn't the wax teeth that got me carving the wax teeth. I was going to go to vet school and had gotten into vet school, and then decided the vet school wasn't the right fit, and then took a year off, took the DAT, and went to dental school instead. So.
Did you know immediately that this is what I want to do, or did it take you a minute?
I think once I was in, and it's, you get tunnel vision. Like, I was so focused on doing what I was doing. But it took until clinicals probably to realize even what dentistry was, what it looked like on what I was getting into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think I knew exactly that I wanted to be a dentist until I started working on children. And I knew that, this is what I need to be doing. Being pediatric dentist is what I really felt comfortable with. And I was like, now I see.
Was Vance Cartwright your teacher?
He was not.
Okay. Yeah, he made me really enjoy working with children.
Yeah, Harry Sharp
Yeah.
was the one for sure. Did you have any? So we're 3 different generations of the University of Tennessee Dental School.
Yeah.
And everybody has, I don't know, great stories, horror stories of dental school and maybe their teachers. Do you have any that you would want to share?
I don't know if I have
remember
any stories right off my mind. I'll just say I'd been working since I was 14, started cutting grass, had jobs loading trucks when I was 16, graduated from college, and for a year before I went to dental school, I sold cars.
Really?
And so by the time I started dental school, I don't want to say I was more mature than the other people, but I was ready to deal with the rigors, and I wasn't intimidated by any instructors, and dealing with patients was fine. And if I could learn how to do all those different jobs, I could certainly learn that as well. So I don't consider myself the smartest person in the room, but I consider myself someone who's willing to put in as much time as it takes to learn it properly.
And to follow your values.
Yes, indeed.
And that can take you in the right direction. I'm glad you talked about cosmetic dentistry. You really didn't get into it until 20 years. Yeah, amazing. I see cosmetic dentists as artists, form and function, and art, beauty wise. Do you see it that way at all?
Absolutely. And I probably didn't even know, at least from the dental aspect, that I had that in me until I started doing it and really started studying form and function and light and how light is absorbed and reflected from teeth and how the different anatomical features of it change that, and how to study a face and what makes a face beautiful and how you can enhance that with a broader smile or a more narrow smile or longer teeth. Or
amazing. So it's total art.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you artistic in any other way prior to that? Were you?
I think I did okay in high school, I enjoyed art in elementary school and high school. No, I wouldn't have called myself artistic. the one other area where I find myself artistic is gardening. And like we built a house a while back and helped lay out the design of the house, but really got heavy into designing the yard and where the driveway was going to go and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember the concrete contractor telling me he couldn't do the driveway like I wanted it. And I said, come back tomorrow and I'll have it all staked out and painted. You'll see exactly where to put it.
Oh, that's great. Hey, how many hours of sea would you say you've had?
I lost track. Thousands and thousands.
Thousands and thousands.
And how did you pick the Pankey Institute?
Well, at that time, I wanted some advanced education, and it was really the only one in the United States in the 80s, unless you want to go to Europe. And I knew a lot of people who went to Europe. As we go forward now, there's other places I would recommend, and that would be Coyce Institute, John Coyce, and the Spear Institute, and the one in St. Petersburg.
I'm a pediatric dentist.
Yeah. And I'll give you that in a minute. But
Pankey at the time was the one and only in the United States.
yeah,
And then how old was he when had he been given these courses for a while?
he had set a standard. Had started study clubs back in the 50s,
Oh.
and then some of his people that studied with him actually formed the Pankey Institute, named it after him. And he taught there some, and they taught there some, and it's still going strong.
Dr. Lydia, before we get into the dental conference material, do you have anything you want to ask Dr. Bernstein about his journey that we've been discussing?
Oh, I don't know if I have a question. I have like a little personal anecdote from when I was in dental school. I went to a free dental day in Pulaski, Tennessee.
Yes.
It must have been I was clinical, so we got to go and work on patients. So it must have been my third year of dental school, maybe. And you were there, and you had these forceps, and they were like these physics forceps. And it really made an impression on me because in dental school, it is like you have these things. This is your set of armamentarium. This is what you have to work with. This is how dentistry works. And it was like made an impression because I was like, oh, there are other things. That's why I asked about how you knew which CE to take, because you kind of get out of dental school and you're like, there's a million ways to do this, like you said earlier, Dr. B. And so I was like, oh, there are different things you can buy. There's so much. How do you go through sorting through what makes sense for you in your career, and how do you pick those things? So it was the first time I was even introduced to like, oh, there are different ways to do things. And it must have been early in clinicals, but I remember it
Yeah.
made a big impression.
And I think I was at the Greater New York Dental meeting in some earlier that year, and someone said, you need to go look at these physics forceps they're over there on the other side of the exhibit hall. And I went and looked at them. They showed me how they work, and I went, okay, I'm leaving for India in a couple of months, and I want to buy a set, take it with me. And they gave me a deep discount because I was taking it on a mission trip. And so I took them and used them a lot in India. And then I bought a set and donated it to the mobile dental clinic in Memphis. And interesting, the guy who drove the truck, Richard Arwood, former fire chief of the city of Memphis, but he retired and drove the mobile dental clinic truck. And then he went to dental school and became a dental assistant. And he learned how to do it so he could teach all the students how to use those forceps. They're tricky, but they make extracting a tooth, even one broken off at the gum line, much easier.
That's what this was in Pulaski, Tennessee, and I thought it was impossible, and it turns out it wasn't.
Okay, are you ready to create your very own hypothetical dental conference.
Certainly, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. So let's talk about your name of your dental conference first before we get to location. Tell me about what you're going to name your dental conference.
I actually changed this a few times after you asked me to do this, but the one I came up with was Success Through Service and Excellence, to stay in keeping with the theme of the kind of courses and programs that I would like to have in what you called my dental conference.
Correct. Did you have what else were you choosing between?
I can't remember, but we had a tagline, clinical care, human relations, and exhibits with a loving touch.
Location. Where are we holding your conference? And then sometimes I might go off on little tangents here, just personally speaking, where it's not quite dental conference speaking, but maybe more of a personal question for you. But where are you choosing?
Well, having managed and put on dental conferences for the American Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry and the Tennessee Academy and my local study club, I found that when we did it in Hawaii, for instance, that sounds glamorous, but not as many people came, and exhibitors had a very hard time getting their materials there. Same thing when we did it in Vancouver or Toronto. Going out of the country was hard with customs and all that. And if we did it in a great big city like New York or Chicago, even though that's glamorous, that was hard. So I like locations that don't cost quite as much per night for a room. The food and exhibit hall don't cost as much, and a lot of people can drive there. So the place that I came up with was a place like Sandestin Beach Resort in Destin, Florida, or similar type places.
I love it. I love it.
And we actually have put on a couple there.
Have you? That seems like a great place.
My mom, when I was growing up, she put on medical CE conferences, and we would go to Sandestin every summer. So it was like a part of growing up, going to Sandestin.
Going to Sandestin.
Another good one that we've used past are Gaylord facilities, because everybody can be they're big enough that everybody can be in the same facilities. So the AACD has actually done them in all the Gaylord facilities in Texas, Nashville, Orlando, Washington, D.C. Got one coming up in Denver.
This place was easy to get to, and you could have all the people and all the attention. Have you been on a vacation anywhere that you were like, you need to go? Like, I've been to Canadian Rockies, and I'd be like, oh, everybody needs to see Lake Louise or whatever. Have you been anywhere that I need to put on, that we need to put on our own bucket lists?
Oh, too many.
Good problem to have.
That's a good problem to have.
I'll spit out a few real
Please,
fast.
yeah.
So I also did Banff and Lake Louise and took the train across 2 summers ago. We recently got back from Belize, and I found it quite enjoyable, and I felt safe. And it's funny, I thought it was a Hispanic country, but when I got there, it wasn't a Hispanic country. It used to be British Honduras, and everybody speaks English, beautiful English, and it's very beautiful people that I think are former slaves, and they're all very kind, and so it was a lot of fun. I would go back and recommend it. I had the good fortune of going to a number of places in Europe, and Germany was a lot of fun. I think Switzerland was probably one of my favorites. We took trains all over Switzerland. And I've had the good fortune to go to Italy 3 times, and took a cruise around the Mediterranean. It was one of those trips.
Okay, so our success through service and excellence, being held at Sandestin Resort in Destin, Florida. And our tagline is clinical care, human relations, exhibits with a loving touch. And then, as with most conferences, they start with a keynote speaker. Tell me who you choose.
Well, of course, I chose probably a big speaker that the conference would never be able to afford.
Of course, well, that's
But
good.
it's someone who has influenced me a lot, and that's Simon Sinek, who's a speaker and an author. And he kind of is consistent with our theme of caring for people. And you can find out more about him at simonsinek.com. He wrote, I will say, I don't know, I think I was on social media and somebody posted a TED Talk maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And Simon Sinek was talking about his new book called Leaders Eat Last. And I listened to his TED Talk for 10, 15 minutes and immediately turned around and ordered that book, read it all the way through, and then spent 6 months outlining it. And I developed a presentation on leadership out of that book.
Really?
And I've presented that about 12 times at different venues, some of them out of town at dental conferences and non-dental events. He also wrote, before that one, a really great book called Start With Why. That the obvious reason is we need to know why we're doing what we do and why are we doing this podcast. You know, we need to know that before we start doing it.
Correct. And I actually saw that TED Talk a long time ago, and I showed it to my staff so that they could kind of get a feel of what I want to get across to the patients, parents, to the families, and why we are doing, what we're doing. Like as far as this podcast goes, the why would be to help some budding dentists understand that there are a number of different ways to do things and to get the pre-dental school kids to get interested, the dental school kids to learn, and then even seasoned dentists, practicing dentists to learn. You can always learn, right? And to learn pearls of wisdom from people who have done it. And so that would be the why of our podcast. Do you want to add to that?
When I first got out of school, my first boss would always say, like, we're practicing dentistry. Like, it is a practice. It is a lifelong practice. And so that's what it is. It's like getting to talk to people to figure out how I can improve my practice.
So for me, in the book, Leaders Eat Last, I try consciously to live the principles in that book every day. And I'm going to just give one small example of something I learned in that book because it relates to dentistry. And we're all in the business of maintaining people's smile or enhancing their smile or making them proud of their smile. And when I smile at you, I noticed you smile back, and you did too. And the reason was that it caused, when I smiled, these muscles contracted and serotonin was released from my brain, and it made me feel good. And when you saw me smile, the same serotonin was released from your brain, and it made you feel good. And a lot of this book is talking about all these different body chemicals that are going on simultaneously in the body and how a leader can enhance them in their business place, family, church, charitable group, to lift everybody up.
Okay, so we have the keynote speaker, and then we have educational courses. And within the educational courses, there are professional courses that will pertain to the actual dentistry itself, and then the practice of dentistry and strategic planning and all the above. And then there are the personal courses and how to combine these things, together, because as a dentist, you're on your little island,
Yes.
and this little island, you're here in this professional little island, and then you get out into the real world, and you have to bridge the gap, or combine the two, personal and professional lives, if you will. So that will be a question I'll have for you later about your dental island, and then how this will be later, but how you got out there to have mentors. I already know it's all your CE courses and everything, but we'll want to get into that in a little bit. But professional courses. And then if you want to teach them, that's great. If you want to have a lecturer, even if we can't afford it for our conference.
Unlimited budget.
Unlimited budget. Let's fire away.
Okay. Well, in keeping with follow-up of a keynote speaker, I had myself teaching Leadership is for Everyone is the first course. And a lot of these, I got me down as a teacher, and some of them I have my wife down as a teacher because I know what she teaches,
Right.
and how she does it. Communication skills for doctors and team. I had my wife's taught that a lot, but I put in Linda Miles, who I've heard teach that many times, and she's a great speaker. Communication skills for doctors and team. And then another one for me, strategic planning. And a lot of people probably don't even know what I mean by that.
I had made a note of, is this practice strategic, personal, the combination, business growth, dental growth? I did have questions about that.
Yeah, all of the above. But just real briefly, the way we teach strategic planning and the way our consulting company helps dental practices develop their own strategic plan is, number one, you do a lot of dreaming about what could be, just like we're dreaming about a dental conference with an unlimited budget. So I ask dentists and their teams to dream about what would your practice look like if there were no limitations. What kind of patients would come to you? Would they fly from out of town? How would they gladly pay these fees? What kind of dentistry would you be doing? What kind of equipment would you have? What would your facility look like? What kind of staff would you have? How would you interact with your patients? What does that look like? Because the next step is vision. And we believe you should dream first, because your vision's going to end up being much larger if you've thought about this great big dream. Now we're going to go to a more practical vision. I can't build a new building, so we'll do the best we can with this building, but we can do some remodeling. And so what is my vision for 5 years or 10 years from now if, not just I, the whole team, because if the team's not part of it, it won't happen. The team's got to be part of this evolution. So create a vision, and then a mission statement, which is just a shorter version of the vision. And after the mission statement, a list of values for the practice. Now, you can do all these same things for yourself or your family, but we're talking about practice right now. So what are the values? And again, to me, they should be about 6 to 10 values that are most important to the doctors and team. And those might be respect for the individual, or we believe that people want the best dentistry that we can provide. Not they want what the insurance will pay. They want the best dentistry we can provide. That's our belief. Now, my values doesn't necessarily have to be your values. Yours should be structured to you. And we typically guide teams into, they might come up with 20 or 30 values into culling them down to 6 to 10 that really matter, and keep those in front of their mind. So after values, and by the way, this is taught in business schools in every master's MBA program in the country every single day. But dentists have rarely been exposed to it.
Correct.
And we've added another category called standards, because we think it's important to a dental practice. And standards, and you can have a lot of standards, as many as needed. So that might be sterilization concepts, and that might be, we're going to take x-rays on this for new patients, and at this recall interval. A standard might be, I'm not going to extract a tooth unless it needs to be extracted. A standard might, or that could be a value. Standards could be cell phones get put away and we don't look at our cell phone during work, which was my standard, but it wasn't the standard of the doctors who bought my practice.
Right.
Which is okay. Times changed, people change. So after standards, we're going to set some goals. So I believe in 2 or 3 goals at a time and complete those. And then write some more goals. So goals might be become proficient at sleep disorder, treatment of treat sleep disorders. Or goals might be purchase a cone beam. Goal might be write a complete office manual. Lots of goals, but if you got 20 of them, it's hard to get any of them complete. So I believe pick out 2 or 3, get them done, then 2 or 3 more.
Move on.
Again, team decisions. Then it happens. And then after that, business systems. And business systems is how you make the goals, the values, the standards, the vision a reality. So a business system is recall system, new patient entry system, telephone answering system, budgeting system, supply ordering system. Probably typical office would have 50, 60 systems, all written to paper, and they're dynamic. They're going to change over time a little bit. Okay, and one more system or one more or step to strategic planning that we added that I noticed a lot of business schools don't have is monitors. So monitors is to make sure we're actually following all of the above. And a monitor might be a report that's generated and set on the doctor's desk or the business manager's desk, or a monitor might be a person who listens to the receptionist answer the phone to make sure they're following the system as laid out. That's strategic planning.
That's
as we see
amazing.
it.
And then, well, you don't have an MBA, so where did you?
Did you
Go ahead.
develop these over time? Was this something that was kind of a guide work provided to you through Panky? How did you come up with this system of strategic planning?
I think I was always organized and business minded and leaning that way. But it was actually when John and Todd bought the practice that they needed to learn more about these concepts. So we together enrolled in an advanced strategic planning workshop with a gentleman named Bob Frazier, and did about 3 long weekends on strategic planning. And I've modified it a little bit from what Bob taught us, but his primary text was the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People by Stephen Covey, which is a hard read and a lot of detail in it, but that's where a lot of this comes from. Another course, got into health strategies for a lifetime. And I got for patients, doctors, and team. And I'd like to expand on that a little bit
Please.
for 10 minutes or so.
Absolutely.
We as dentists were all taught how to sit correctly at the chair in proper ergonomics, and very few actually do it. And I'm guilty. And so the last 10 years of my practice, my back and neck hurt a lot. But I kept working, especially these long 6-hour appointments I would have, not just leaning over, but turned sideways. I would have to get up. I'd sedate most of my patients, and I'd have to get up and walk around the office every 45 minutes or so. Interesting, after I retired and I focus on going to the gym and PT, things have gotten a lot better from that. But that got me thinking. And the other thing, 2 other things got me thinking about this concept. And one was when I took my course in sleep disorders, excuse me, quite a while back. And I was really enthralled about sleep disorders because it made me feel like a physician of the entire body. I learned so much about the impact of sleep on our body and infection and healing and heart disease and that sort of thing. And the third thing was this little pandemic we had, commonly called COVID. And right when that was beginning, I was already retired, but my brain started really thinking in depth about health and vaccines, and that the most important thing we can do for ourselves is build our immune system, which is really nothing more than do everything it said in the 8th grade health book. But if we're going to do that for ourselves, why not encourage our team and encourage our patients to do the same thing for them? And I think actually as gatekeepers for our patients, we actually have a responsibility when we notice as a pedodontist, a hyperactive child, to make a referral. And maybe mom or dad might get upset with you for even saying that might be necessary. But I think we have the responsibility to say, I'm observing this, and I think they need an evaluation. Same thing for me when I'm seeing high blood pressure or I see a suspicious mole. It doesn't have to be in the mouth to make a referral. And of course, we started screening every adult for sleep disorders of any age. That became a part of our new patient exam and making the referral to the sleep physician. And interestingly, consequently, the sleep physician referred back to us when they had people that needed a oral appliance rather than a CPAP. Back to COVID. So I wrote an article which really became a Facebook post back at the very beginning of COVID because I wanted to share my thoughts with everyone. And I'm just going to give you a very brief summary of my thinking of what everyone should consider to keep their own immune system healthy. Of course, eating healthy food. I got to sidetrack for a moment. So some 6 years before that, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer and ended up getting prostate surgery. And I'm fine, so don't worry about me. And the urologist gave me a thick book on prostate cancer, most of which I'd already been informed of. But I read the nutrition chapter with great interest. And it was written by a urologist, but the urologist said that our foods are full of preservatives and our foods are full of hormones. And he said, I can't prove it, I can't disprove it, but I think all these cancers we're seeing and other odd diseases and autoimmune diseases are arising from what's in our food. So I encourage everybody, whether you have cancer or don't have cancer, to eat as organically as you can, to have 5 servings of colorful fruits every day, to have 5 servings of colorful, raw, if possible, vegetables every day, lean meats, healthy fats, and stay away from refined sugars. It's really that simple. And I thought, isn't that what it said in our 8th grade health book? The other things on my list is proper sleep, which goes with the sleep disorders. But until I took that course, I wasn't really tuned in that we need 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep as an adult every single day, and it needs to be restful sleep to help our body heal, recover, take short-term memory and put it into long-term memory, and the list goes on. And probably many people listening to this are just like me as a young person thinking, I'll just sleep when I'm old. So I would stay up late reading dental journals and get up at 4:30 in the morning to go run my 6 miles before work and just think, I'll sleep later.
Right.
Now I try to go to bed at the same time, get up at the same time, have the room dark and quiet and no devices in the room, and try to get real sleep. And I encourage everybody else to do that. Another factor of building your immune system is well-being. So I think, again, for ourselves, if you have stress, and a lot of that is in Sinek's book, Leaders Eat Last Too, How to Deal with Stress. So stress releases cortisol. And cortisol is bad for our body. It causes ulcers, heart disease, autoimmune diseases, diabetes, bruxism, muscle tonicity in general. And if we're working in a dysfunctional work environment or living in a dysfunctional family, we need to learn, we need to escape or correct it and stop having cortisol dripping in our bodies every day. But don't we owe the same thing to our team and our staff? And if we see a staff member that's living in a dysfunctional family environment, shouldn't we help them get to therapy? If we see a patient that's showing signs of stress-related diseases, if they're clenching and grinding and wearing their teeth down and beating up their joint, shouldn't we as dentists not only treat the joint and the teeth, but also deal with their stress and help them understand how to deal with stress? And I frequently, when I treated my myofascial pain patients, that they need to deal with stress by what works for them. So for me, it was exercise. For some people, it's therapy. For some people, it's prayer. For some people, it might be transcendental meditation. But do something to manage stress and get it at a workable level. I could go on about this, but I'll stop.
Because there is the physical aspects of your health strategies, and then there's the psychological, mental health factors, which I don't know if people are just now starting to talk about it more, or I don't know if it's just awareness about it, or people aren't as ashamed of it, but it seems to be out there further, more.
Right.
And so I certainly, to take care of yourself mentally and physically is good. Along those lines, you said you ran in the morning, whatever. Did you have any other routines that have stayed with you throughout your whole career? So would you always wake up early and exercise? Did you meditate? Do you meditate? Do you write in a journal? Are there any things that you would say, oh yeah, every day I wake up and I journal, I have my coffee, I do my exercise, I do this, that? Do you have a routine?
Well, my routine for dealing with stress was I ran long distance for 30 years and ran 12 marathons and about 50 half marathons. And I probably overdid it and broke my neck and back down in addition to leaning over the dental chair. But I can't change that now. And if I had it to do over again, I wouldn't have run that much. But for me, running helped. But while I was running, I would get out there. And to me, the most beautiful thing was being out on the road by myself at sunrise and commune with the Lord at that time and talk to the Lord and say, what am I supposed to do? I'm dealing with a problem. Or quite often I just methodically work through a problem at the office or a problem somewhere else. And these are the options. Which one do I choose? And while I was running, my brain seemed to clear. And that's what worked for me. More recently, I'm going to say in the last 5 years, I've gotten real focused on waking up every morning and reminding myself how fortunate I am and be able to have this life at this age and be relatively healthy. And it's really an attitude of gratitude. And I think expressing gratitude makes those chemicals release and makes us healthier.
Next, you have on there is common sense marketing.
Yeah, and I'm not going to talk about that one a whole lot,
Okay.
except I just put Zonya Winans, who's a friend of mine, down as a speaker on that. That, if anybody has an opportunity to catch her sometime, she's a great speaker on marketing as a science, not as we're going to make you a lot of money, but how to go about. And she has a company called Golden Proportions Marketing that's specific to dentistry. And she likes to find out what your budget is and build a marketing program around your budget.
Super.
Stream customer service. I put my wife, Diane Bernstein, down because she's taught that a number of times, and she does it beautifully well. And that's something, we focused on in our office and encourage our consulting clients to focus on. How can you, from the customer service side, how can you make your practice stand out? And not just because you want to make money, but because you want to feel good about yourself and what you're providing.
Was your wife, did you guys work together throughout your practice?
We did. We got married 33 years ago, and we did a little side business together for a year and saw how effective we were working together. And I talked her into quitting her job and coming to work with me. So she worked there 26 years. And even after I retired, she kept working because she was committed to the team.
That's amazing.
But she's retired now as well.
How did y'all balance that personal and professional lives together? Because you're always with each other, and then if you're at home and you didn't want to talk about dentistry, but it just kind of comes up about the day, how did that work for you?
You got it, Dr. B. It never went away. And we talked about dentistry 24/7, and our kids got sick of hearing about it. And we'd be on an airplane going somewhere to relax, and she'd say, I don't want to talk about dentistry this whole week. And then she'd go, what do you think we ought to do about such and such?
Well, as long as y'all are both, both okay with that, then that's great.
We had a great time. We were a great team together. And then I got her also teaching the role of the patient coordinator, which was really a course she's put together that I've never really seen anywhere else. But many, many factors of what a dedicated patient coordinator can do and be worth it to a dental practice, that they don't answer the phone and they don't dental assist on the side. They're totally focused on being the advocate of the patient, helping them through their insurance, helping them with their questions, helping them communicate their questions to the doctor. Because quite honestly, we doctors in the white coat might scare the patient just a little bit, or even the parents. And somebody else that sits down with them first and bonds with them and is trained to be a good listener can find out what their needs are, what their fears are, and then relate it to the doctor and find what does the doctor and that person have in common and kind of bring them together.
That's super important.
Mm-hmm.
That's a small part of it. Another course, building a robust fee-for-service practice, avoiding insurance and corporate pitfalls. And I decided it'd be best to have a panel do that. But I will expand on that just a little bit.
Please.
My practice, my former practice is a fee-for-service practice, and it wasn't always. So when I first started in practice in 1975, practically no one had insurance of any kind. And then some people showed up probably within the first year with indemnity insurance. And I thought that was great. And some of them had, International Harvester at that time had indemnity insurance that paid 100% except a $25 deductible, no matter what we wanted to do. And those patients would come in and go, "Do I need another crown?" And I go, "Well, no, we don't need to do a crown if you don't need a crown."
Right.
But we found out much later they had a lifetime maximum of like $15,000. Some of my patients hit that maximum. Fast forward, we got into what they called managed care. That's closer to what we have today, but not exactly. And like most of the other dentists, I joined a lot of the managed care plans. We noticed that the fees never went up, and we noticed that they wanted to control us. For example, they would say, if they're missing a tooth on both sides of the mouth, you can't do a fixed bridge or an implant. You have to do a removable partial denture. I say, I don't want a removable partial denture in my mouth if I don't have to. But that was their rule. Mm-hmm. So it took a lot of courage. But in the 90s, we, over about a 5-year period of time, got off of all insurance plans. And
Gradually?
Gradually. Didn't want to suffer financially.
Correct.
And we didn't know for sure what was going to happen. But I had listened to my mentors that said, you don't have to be on insurance, but you do have to offer something special. They're not going to drive past 100 other dental offices to come to you if they don't think the dentistry is superior and the customer service is superior. So we had to ramp that up at the same time. Our system was start at least 6 months ahead of time having a conversation with all the patients on that plan, eyeball to eyeball. And generally it would be me. And I'd sit them up in the chair and look them straight in the eye and tell them, we're going to be getting off your plan because we can't provide the care we want to provide at the level we want to provide it for the fees they pay. And we want to let you know ahead of time so that you can make other arrangements, or we hope you'll stay with us. We like you and you're a friend. And what we found was doing it that way, about 85% stayed with us and about 15% drifted away. And then of that 15%, about half of those came back within the next 2 years when they found they didn't clean their teeth as thoroughly, or the injections hurt, or whatever. And they decided it was worth paying a bit more. And then the next year, now we had more confidence and did a couple more plans, and had a couple more plans, and then a couple more, and then we're off of all of them and never went back. And my former practice today is just as busy as they can be.
Tell me again how long you were into your practice before you decided to get off the insurances?
Well, there was no insurance when I first started, but I was probably 18 years into it.
And then you gave them pretty much 6 months lead time.
Yes.
For your patients.
Yep.
Did you follow somebody's protocol for those things, or those are things like, if I were the patient, this is what I would want, so this is what I'm doing?
Yes, I did. And I've had some mentors in other cities that told me what they had done, and I followed their protocol, and I can't remember any names at the moment. One verbal skill we taught our whole staff was if, for instance, they called somebody for recall and said, and they said, well, I decided to go to the in-network dentist. Go, that's okay. We understand. And you'll always be welcome back if things don't work out. So we kind of just put it in their mind things might not work out, and don't want them to feel like they feel guilty for doing that. And many of those people would call up with questions about their current treatment, and they say, well, let me put Dr. Bernstein on the phone. I know he'd want to help you with that. I'd answer their questions, and I wouldn't put the other dentist down or anything. Just, you're still our friend. We want to be of service to you. So lots of those people came back, and a lot of those people that didn't come back referred people. So everybody that's listening to this can do the same thing, but you've got to have something special to offer them. And it can't just be that you're nice. They're all nice. You got to do super high quality dentistry.
Absolutely. And is that along the lines of cosmetic dentistry, or that could be any type of, like, do you know, for a pediatric dental office in a big city, you know, for an endodontics office or a periodontist, or is it the same?
Yes. It's harder because you have referring dentists that if their patients complain to them that you're not on their plan, they may not continue to refer. But if you're strong enough and your reputation's good enough and your marketing plan's good enough, you'll be as busy as you need to be. And I can't name any pedodontists right off, but I have met lots of periodontists, prosthodontists that have gone insurance independent successfully.
And do you think moving forward, like with the future of corporate dentistry and just the way dentistry is changing in general, that will look different in 5 or 10 years for practices?
It's hard to predict the future. I'm a little disappointed in the trends I see in dentistry and business in general. There are hospitals and big medical clinics in this town that it feels like all they care about is the money. And they just want to do another shoulder replacement to get the money. And I've been very proud of dentistry for most of my career, that for the most part, the dentists cared about their patients, were not money grubbing, were kind people, and I saw what I'll call corporate dentistry, which combines a lot of different models, come in, and I can't blame them that their goal is to make money for their stockholders. But unfortunately, most of the time, to me, that seems to be get the patients in and out. We don't have time for a 1-hour exam. How cheaply can we hire a hygienist? How cheaply can we hire a young associate dentist and work them to death? And it's all about the money. And unfortunately, I've seen many of what I'll call the mom and pop practices mimic that model and do the same thing, which brings us to what I'll call the high-end concierge type practice, that if somebody delivers really high quality care, specialty or not, and if somebody provides really high customer service, then there's a niche of people in the population that want that. And they will go out of plan gladly because they care about their health. And to me, people would say, well, you had all those rich people in Germantown. And I go, but that's not who came to me. it was the clerk from the grocery store, it was school teachers, it was police officers, it was people from North Mississippi and Western Arkansas that wanted high-end, they wanted to be treated right, and they wanted high-end care, and they sought us out. And you can do that too, if you want to. And it was very fulfilling to me. And we were able to charge what we felt like was a fair fee to us. And I don't feel like we gouged it all. There certainly would be a tipping point where people would stop coming because it's just too much money. But we charged, for example, the trend is in general dentistry is to find cheaper and cheaper labs so that you can keep up with the insurance companies. Mm-hmm. Whereas we were going to more expensive labs, probably 3 to 4 times what most of our neighbors were paying to get really high quality lab work. But to do that, we had to charge a higher fee, also paying a higher wage to get high quality people that could carry out these concepts in the vision. Mm-hmm. So I won't dwell on that anymore, but if anybody out there wants to know more about how to do that, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to talk to you at no charge and give you more detail.
That's great. And I'm sure people will definitely take you up on that because it definitely is worth investigating for sure. Do you think that the corporate is chicken or the egg? Is the corporate dentistry caused by the insurances? Is the insurances caused by corporate dentistry? Is all this, is it all just kind of intertwined? So people need to do more things and see more patients because the insurance is not providing a compensation that's well.
It is intertwined, but I think it's separate. I think corporate dentistry is the result of corporate America mm-hmm. finding out that dentistry could be profitable. And they found they could buy restaurant chains and they could fail. But dental offices rarely failed and usually made, we're used to 40% profit in most dental offices today. And a grocery store does 2% profit. Mm-hmm. 3% is called a banner year. So I think corporate America saw the profit, and I think many times it's not about how much you make per month or per year for corporate America. It's buying more and more and more till you have 100 to 500 dental practices in your portfolio, and then selling it to a bigger entity. And that bigger entity might be a billionaire holding company out of Malaysia. Mm-hmm. And they don't care. Many of the practices will care if their boss is now a holding company out of Malaysia. Mm-hmm. I'm not picking on Malaysians, that's just an example.
I got you. Within the fee for service, and then we'll move on, is there a percentage of, what kind of percentage of your budget goes towards marketing if you're not taking insurances?
Yeah. So if the typical discount on insurance plans is 25%, is that fair?
Fair.
Okay. Then that's 25% you now got available for CE, more marketing, bonus plans for your staff, so that they'll feel better about working here and staying longer. And So if you took, 10 or 12% of that 25%, put it into marketing, that's a robust marketing budget. For us, we never needed it. Our total marketing consisted of, in fact, we took our yellow paid ad and made it a line, and then we probably spent about 20 grand a year on internet marketing, because that really worked for us. And I think we did a couple of ads in Memphis Magazine, probably simply because John had a friend there. We weren't even seeking it out.
Okay, so building the robust fee for service, I think we touched on that pretty good. And we can run through a little bit of the rest of your educational courses. Sales is not a dirty word. Ashley Ladder. Or is that Don't Wait for the Tooth Fairy? I know that was one of Ashley Ladder's.
That was Don't Wait for the Tooth Fairy is the name of his book that I would encourage everybody in dentistry to get and read. Sales is not a dirty word. It's just what I named the course.
Oh, gotcha.
Ashley's a really fun, nice guy from Manchester, England, and he was actually a sales consultant, and he's adopted dentistry. He's got some great stories about how he got started in dentistry, but he's just a very dynamic speaker and helps dentists understand it's okay to elegantly guide people into making decisions for themselves that are in their best interest. And if we provide them with enough service and enough care, they're going to want to do what we think is best for them. It's not complicated.
How much do you contribute confidence in your success, not confidence in your success, in becoming successful?
Yeah. Well, I think confidence is certainly important, and that comes from building a strong relationship. So it's kind of certainly if you have a good pedigree and your dad was a dentist and you've got a master's degree and and you have a successful practice, people can see that, and that's going to give them confidence. But when they look at your eyes and you're looking at them and you're smiling and you're talking to them and exuding warmth, that's going to build confidence too.
But what about confidence from within to be the dentist to sell that?
Yeah.
Sell maybe not the right word, but to get that across.
I think hearing Ashley Ladder speak or reading the book will help people gain that feeling if they're lacking it currently.
Great. You've touched on sleep disorders previously, so that would be another course and you have Dr. Kent Smith.
Yeah, and that's who I learned from treating sleep disorders, and he's in Plano, Texas, and has a course he teaches there and also speaks around the country. But he's an interesting guy that he enjoys it so much he has limited his practice to doing nothing but sleep disorders and 6-month smiles, which is a rapid adult orthodontic system, which I also learned and did.
And y'all have had success with that also.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And just a quick sideline on that one is I believe one of my values is the best dentistry I can do from people is usually the least dentistry. So that's one of the reasons I like no prep veneers and onlays rather than crowns. But if I can move teeth to a better position in a short amount of time and then restore them, then I can do, instead of doing a whole mouthful of crowns, now I can do some whitening, 8 veneers or 8 no prep veneers, and that's it.
It's great.
And save them a lot of money along the way.
Okay, next you have the course in sedation dentistry.
Yeah, again, because of my cosmetic dentistry, I felt like people were leaving after these long, hard appointments, and they were coming back and going, I love the way my smile looks. I'm very happy. I'm very satisfied. But those shots really hurt, and I was exhausted after those 2 6-hour appointments.
6 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm going to learn to do sedation so that they don't have to experience that, so they can come back and say, I love my smile, I love my teeth, and I don't remember the injections, and I don't remember much of anything.
And
That's conscious sedation, so they're alert enough to bite on the articulating paper, to even look in the mirror and tell me what they think. They don't remember.
And is it oral conscious sedation or IV?
I did oral. I probably would have gone on and learned IV, but I thought I was close to retirement, and I kept putting off retirement. The next thing that happened was we had a big jump in case acceptance, because people who I thought were not afraid actually were afraid, but they didn't tell me. So my standard routine was, when I told them, we want to do 10 veneers or 10 whatever, and if it's okay with you, I would like to do some pill sedation, and it's pretty easy, but you really won't have much memory of the appointment. And I was surprised how many people would go, oh, I definitely want that because I'm scared to death. But they hadn't told us that, even though we had questionnaires and asked all these probing questions, because they're embarrassed. And so we found out, so way more people said yes, and they weren't canceling that appointment saying it was too much money, when the real reason was they were afraid. And so
That helped you out a lot.
yeah, that helped a lot.
Conservative aesthetic and restorative dentistry, basically you just touched on that with the no prep veneers, I would think. And is anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I put Dr. Dennis Wells down to do it because he has an in-office class on that I've took and found very beneficial.
He's in Nashville.
He's in, Brentwood, right outside of Nashville, and he's a great speaker and really speaks beautifully about the whole concept of doing the least amount of dentistry possible to achieve the goal.
Predictable full mouth rehabilitation.
And I put that one in there because a lot of people could speak on that, but I'm actually teaching a course at UT to the general practice residencies a week from today, and I'm going to show them a complex full mouth case where we open the bite and how we do it step by step so that we end up in the right place and don't get lost in space and end up with the joint in the right place and triple check everything and all the records we take, and help the students who are now dentists do take centric relation predictably, and how to take a centric relation bite and mount it on an articulator correctly, that kind of thing.
Dr. Lydia is doing that here in our office for the 6-year-old.
All the full mouth cases we're doing. Yeah.
Okay, standardized dental photography.
Yeah, and I've put this on for the students quite a few times. And J.A. Reynolds from Nashville, now retired, Franklin, Tennessee, was actually the main speaker at most of those, and taught it a number of times for the AACD. And I think that's just a great thing for everybody to learn, so you can communicate with your lab efficiently, and so you can show your before and after work in a standardized format to your patients and for marketing.
Did y'all take photos of new patients, everything, occlusion on every new patient exam, or was it just for the people that wanted cosmetic dentistry or dentistry?
I don't think this is necessary for everybody, depending on what your goals were, but since we're a cosmetic practice, yeah, we did, and they still do take photography on every new adult patient.
Smile design is your next course.
And I taught that to the Aesthetic Study Club at UT earlier this year. And I won't go into detail about it, but all the parameters of creating a beautiful smile.
Understanding occlusion, I guess this goes along with the predictable full mouth rehabilitation.
Yeah, and we touched on that, but I think one good occlusion course is not enough to me for any general dentist or specialist. And again, I went to Pankey and the Dawson Institute, Coyce Institute, Spear Institute. Any of them could teach this really well, and it would just be an introduction into this kind of thing. But I feel like it took me 10 years of taking courses and studying before I truly understood it. Once I did, a full mouth rehab was predictable, and whether they needed orthodontics first or when to do periodontics, when not to, when to take teeth out, when not to, all that comes into focus.
What's Malcolm Gladwell say? 10,000 hours? Is that what?
Until you become an expert, 10,000 hours. Yeah. When I was first out, I remember thinking, like, when am I going to feel comfortable doing dentistry and not like, oh, I wish they'd gone to the person across the street who's been doing it for so much longer than me. And I asked somebody, and they said, yeah, about 10 years is when I felt good. And, I was 1 year in, and I was like, got a while to go.
Would you think 10 years on that? Or when did you feel comfortable?
I think I got more and more comfortable as time went, but before I could look at somebody's mouth and some mounted models and then say, we can do this, piece of cake. Yeah, it was 10 years of study.
Right.
Was it 10 years of practice?
Right.
So, started studying it 5 years in.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the more you do, the easier it gets. I'm sure both of you can look at a child with a management problem at this stage, and you know what to do.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Step 1, step 2, step 3, all the way to full sedation. But you know exactly what to do. And that's kind of how a complex occlusal problem got for me.
Yeah, time, practice, and courses. Okay, new technologies is going to be our last professional course that we're offering at our conference, at your conference, Success Through Service and Excellence. New technologies, digital design, artificial intelligence. It's exciting things coming up, right?
It's very exciting, and I'm 6 years out of practice, so I'm out of the loop on that already. But the person prior to that I learned the most from, who's a great speaker, researcher, dentist, certified lab technician, is Christian Coachman, and he's out of Sao Paulo, Brazil. And I've heard him speak a number of times and hosted him to the AACD, to Tennessee Group, to Memphis several times. So I highly recommend learning from him.
I think that's a pretty good course load we
Yeah.
got going on there.
We've learned a lot.
We've learned a lot. Then I had on here some personal courses or hobbies or anything to add to our program.
My wife and I go to in the past, have gone to a lot of dental seminars, and she really liked it, particularly when there was a spouse significant other program, and it might be going to art galleries or tourist attractions together, or having breakfast together, but
With other spouses.
something for them to do other than sit by the pool and wonder who else is with the group. Also, back in my running days, I really liked it when they had a 5K run. And we've been to top golf parties, and one of the more recent ones went to was a pickleball tournament, and she played in the pickleball tournament, had a real good time.
Really?
Yeah, and I didn't play pickleball, but I had a real good time anyway. And things like something unique to the city, like we have been to meetings where they rented Universal Studios for the entire meeting, and you could just ride as many rides as you want to, over and over again, and hiking in a mountainous area we thought was fun. Yeah. Just some little sideline things to do for conferences.
That would be great. What about classes for the spouses or significant others, as far as we talked about before, relationship building with your significant other, because this is what dentistry demands, and your spouse might be on a dental island, and when they get off of that island, this is what you can expect when they come home. Right. What do you think about something like that?
Yeah, and I have seen those kind of courses before. Thanks for bringing that up, where there were courses for the spouses to understand the stresses that their husband or wife is going through and what they can do to support them. And many of them rarely set foot in the dental office and don't really know. And, plus they start telling them little things in that kind of course. You could tell them little things they could do that they may be qualified for, like payroll or other things.
A tangent here on stress. And, we were just talking about the relationship building and the stresses that dentists see. Well, dentistry has always been one of the most journaled careers that have been on the top list of stress. What do you attribute that to? Personality in general, the business, like why would you say it's so stressful?
Well, I've read a lot of those articles too, and I think dentistry was number one on suicide among professions for years, but I think psychiatrists have passed us in recent years. But I think the answer to your question is all of the above. And at least during most of the time of my career, the dentist was in an office by themselves. Your dad was probably by himself.
He was.
You were by yourself most of your career. And it is stressful. We deal with other people's pain. I was rarely by myself. I always had other people to talk to. But we deal with other people's pain and internalize their stress. There's been articles written about nitrous oxide vapors. I'm not sure I can prove it or disprove it, but there's articles written. There's articles written about vapors from mercury, that may be attacking their bodies and causing depression. And I think the thing you said in the beginning is a certain kind of person attracted to dentistry. And I think that may be, but I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Was I not good enough for medicine? You know? And then there's all the negative jokes about dentistry, which never bothered me, but
The only time it bothers us is when the parent says it to the child.
Right before their appointment, right?
And then moving on with the dental conference, most conferences have a career fair for young dentists. And it's kind of the advice that you would give young dentists or even yourself at younger age, like, don't worry so much, study hard, it's going to be okay. You know, don't force things, don't press it, take your time, learn, gain some confidence, and then move forward. So, what are we telling these young dentists? What would you have wanted to hear
yeah.
from you coming in? What do you want to tell the dental students or the people fresh out or even the people that have been practicing 10, 20, 30 years? We can always learn.
Absolutely. And one of my favorite things to do at the AACD conferences is to volunteer to go to the new dentist get-togethers. And they usually have breakfasts for them. And I always volunteer to do that because I enjoy that a lot. And at least in that groups, for instance, I started when I was 20 years into practice. So I was the new guy at 20 years in practice, and there's a lot of those and a lot of new people, a lot of students that come to those. But I made a little list here, and some of them is to seek mentors, and I mentor a number of people right now that are young dentists and love helping them, and some of them want business advice, and some of them want to send me pictures of their cases and help treatment planning it, that kind of thing.
How did you find your own mentors? I know you were big into continuing education, but not everybody does all the continuing education that you guys have done, you and Todd and John. If they're on their own dental island, just open up over across the street, how do they find mentors? Get active?
You certainly could meet people at the local dental society, but it's hard to tell who's really got it going on and who would be a good mentor. Today we have social media, so a mentor can be in another state. So you should be brave enough and bold enough when you see somebody explain something on a dental group on social media to reach out to them and say, would you mind talking to me on the phone? And then if you feel a connection, say, could we keep this going? I don't want to, I want to take advantage, but would you mind if we talked once a month? And the truth is as someone who does a lot of mentoring, I've learned you don't choose your mentor, they choose you. So the mentor goes, I identify with her, and I want to spend my time helping her succeed. That feels good to me. But what I did starting out, I think still works. So I asked around and identified who the top dentists in the Memphis area were. And then I called them up on the phone, didn't have any text yet, and said, can I come to your office and watch? Didn't have the word shadowing yet either. Can I come to your office and watch? And I'd come spend a half a day or a day and watch and ask questions. And if there was a connection, I'd come back. And then when I had a complex case, I'd call them up and say, can I bring my case over on an articulator and show you bring the x-rays and get your advice? And so I developed my own that way. You do meet people at other cities, but you be on the lookout for them. But when you go to a conference like the one we're designing, and a dentist walks up to you and wants to help, there's your potential mentor right there. Mm-hmm. So if you connect, you say, whether it's business cards or QR codes nowadays, exchange information and stay in touch. There's your mentor. So I encourage everybody to make it your value that you're going to educate yourself for an entire career. It's not for the first couple of years or the first 5 years or till you get there, but it's exciting for you. It's exciting for your staff. It's exciting for your patients if you're constantly learning and expanding your skill set. Again, something that took a big leap to my practice was not when I became accredited in cosmetic dentistry, but was when I started the journey. Because when I started the journey, my staff got all excited. Mm-hmm. And when it took me 3 years, and it was probably harder than dental school. And I told my patients when they would say, what have you been up to? Been on any trips or anything? I'd say, well, I started a process that's going to lead to accreditation in cosmetic dentistry. And they'd say, well, what does it involve? And I explained the criteria for learning it and studying it and passing it. And they'd say, well, what would you do for me? Mm-hmm. Can I be one of your patients in that? I go, maybe you can.
Right, maybe you can.
So they'd get all excited about it.
Yeah.
And they'd go tell their friends. And I'd say take high-end education early, regardless of your finances. Mm-hmm. And I know many young dentists owe $300,000 or $400,000 in debt, and I'd say borrow some more and go educate yourself. You'll be able to pay the debt back faster. Mm-hmm. And when I say educate yourself, going to your state meeting is fine, and there is some things to be learned, but I'm talking about high-end courses like what we've been talking about, Pankey Coyce,
Spear,
Dawson,
mm-hmm.
Christian Coachman, Kent Smith, and these kind of courses probably cost $3,000 to $6,000 mm-hmm. for a 3 to 4 day course.
It's an investment.
Yeah, plus your hotel and your flight.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what else are we telling the budding dentists?
A brand new dentist, I would encourage them to not join insurance plans. And I would tell them you can certainly get more patients faster if you join insurance plans, but once you get on them, it's very hard to get off them. It's hard emotionally, it's hard financially, and you've now bonded with all your patients and you're afraid you're going to lose them.
Right.
But if you never get on them and you figure out a way to make ends meet, it might be working 2 jobs if there aren't enough patients.
Mm-hmm.
It might be put more energy in to networking. And I'm coming to that in a minute.
Okay. Dedicate at least 40 hours a week to work.
Yep, there you go. So if you're a new dentist and you've got 20 hours worth of patients or 10 hours worth of patients, I say commit you're going to stay in the office or work on your practice 40 hours a week, and you'll grow. Now, you might be like I was. You had 1 employee. And so we sat there and built systems, just the 2 of us. And then I'd say, you stay here and answer the phone. I'm going to walk around the neighborhood. And I literally would walk around the neighborhood and walk in and introduce myself as the new dentist in the neighborhood. And here's a few business cards. And you may have a dentist that you're happy with. That's fine. I just want to let you know I'm here. If you need anything, or if one of your employees has a toothache and need to get them in right away, get them back to work, I'll be there. And I was surprised over the next year or 2 how many of those people did show up at the door. And I also went to other dentists during those walk around the neighborhood and introduced myself and told them where it was and told them if they go out of town and have emergencies, I'd be happy to cover their practice, and I will guarantee them I won't take their patient, that even if their patient says they want to switch to me, I won't accept them. And they did that. And one of those, when he retired about 4 years later, sent all his patients to me
How about that?
instead of selling his practice.
Wow.
Reading books. Today it would be watching podcasts like this one. Just learning, growing.
A lot of education out there for sure, especially now, easy access. Wake up every day with an attitude of gratitude. You touched on that earlier.
Yep, makes us feel good. Makes everybody around us feel good.
Yep.
Smile all day long. Spread the love.
Be charitable with your skills and money.
I think that kind of goes with the gratitude, hand in hand. But I encourage everyone to participate. I know we all participate in Mission of Mercy here in Memphis, and I've done some mission trips, and I give some time to the dental school. I know you all are going to see some charity patients in your office and feel good about that and do your best to work on them. Quick story. I had my assistant many years ago did a bus ministry to her church, and she met a very poor family of kids, the kids on the bus, and she got to know the parents, and she asked me, could we take care of their dentistry on her day off? And I said, of course. And so we treated them all like our regular patients and got the mom, the dad, the 3 kids all very healthy in their mouth. And I'll be darned if 5 years later, here comes the whole family. Mom and dad have both gotten better jobs, and they come back as regular paying patients. Wouldn't go anywhere else.
It's great.
I didn't do it to get a patient. I did it to share my skill set.
You've written here, long after they forgot what you said or did, They will remember how you made them feel.
And I think everybody's heard that before or read it somewhere. But I just want to reemphasize it. That would be my advice to a young dentist, that focus more on that than you do on. I like you to get your verbal skills real well honed, and I'd like you to get your skill set real well honed, but I want you to work even harder on how you make them feel. And do you hug your patients?
We'll accept a hug from a patient.
Do you hug your patient?
Same.
I hug them all,
You do.
unless they go. And if I see them 10 years later now in the grocery store, I give them a full hug. And this is a marketing skill, but it's also make them feel right skill. And really, my wife came up with this. And some of you may already be doing this, but our phone numbers are on the answering machine, the doctor's cell numbers, so they can reach us anytime. But whenever I had a new patient, before they left, I turned to them and said, here's my business card. I've written my cell number on the back. It's also on the answering service. But if you need me, I'm your dentist now, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you got a problem on Christmas morning, I expect you to call me. And two things happened. One was they didn't call. And they'd say, I heard all weekend. And I'd say, well, why didn't you call me? I told you to call me. And they'd say, I don't want to bother you on your weekend. Anyway.
That's great. That's great. I wonder how much that is, how you make them feel. Is that teachable? Is that nature or nurture? Both? What do you think?
I think
The ability to make somebody, feel
I don't
good.
want to go down this whole long rabbit hole, but there's a thing called emotional intelligence and IQ and EQ. And IQ you're kind of born with, and it doesn't change a whole lot. In EQ, you can learn and grow by reading books, taking courses, and practicing. And that's EQ.
What do you think, Doc?
Yeah, I mean, I think practicing, it's one of those things like we say, oh, we'll accept a hug from a patient, but like if you're practicing and you're in your practice, every patient gets a hug. It's like, it gets easier when you do it more. It's like everything, having conversations with people gets easier the more you do it. So,
Yep, I think that's great. You can learn from anyone if you keep your mind and ears open. If you're talking, you cannot be listening.
And I think everybody's heard that one before too, but I want to reemphasize that because most dentists, including myself, want to explain. And I think we really need to shut up and ask questions. And then listen. And then ask a follow-up question. And then listen. And then ask another follow-up question. And then say, thanks for sharing that with me. And even though we're dying to start explaining, don't. Go, let's go do our complete exam and see what else we learn. My wife and I have trained ourselves to be better listeners. She's the best. I'm better than I used to be. She knows how to sit at a desk like this with a patient and start asking them questions and get them to talk about themselves and reveal all about their fears, all about their bad experience they ever had at the dentist, other things that have nothing to do with dentistry, their golf game, They like cars, all about their cars they like, great detail. And then she calls me in there after 20 minutes, and I come in, and they go on, "Oh, we're having a great time. We don't need you."
Right.
And then they go, "Wait a minute, I had the best time, but I didn't learn anything about you, Diane."
That's an art.
It really is.
So I got on here, recommend treatment that you would want for yourself, your spouse, or your child. And I know that's a given, but I don't think people do it. And I think we need to back up and go, if it was your mouth, it was my mouth, would I take all the teeth out and put 4 implants in and a full denture? Or would I ask the patient to spend a whole lot of money and do extractions, root canals, a few implants, and a full mouth reconstruction? Because I know the answer for me. It'd be save as many teeth as I can. And if you believe that taking the teeth out and putting the implants in and the overdentures is the right thing, then that's right. And if you believe a mouthful of stainless steel crowns is right, then it's right. And if you think going to the trouble of making tooth-colored crowns is right, even though it costs more and it's more work and less predictable or whatever, then that's right. But it's what would you do on your child? And when the patient says, that just sounds very expensive, I think the answer should always be, it's your mouth and you're responsible for your health care. All I'm going to do is tell you what I would do in my own mouth or my spouse's mouth or my child. If, we have alternatives if you'd like to do something less complex or whatever.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
I want to give everybody just a snippet of my favorite approach to getting people to say yes to complex dentistry, because this really worked well for me. And, we had this initial interview where Diane did this knock your socks off job, and we did a very thorough exam, and they saw the hygienist had the best cleaning they've ever had in their life. And I'm seeing worn out teeth, worn out fillings, and maybe they just came in and said, I just want my teeth checked and cleaned. Some clicking in the joint, some recession, some abfractions, and I go on. They got, they're clinching grind their teeth bad, their fillings are breaking down, but they're not aware of it all. But sometimes fewer words are better. And I like to say, if I told you there's a way to save your teeth for the rest of your life in a maximum of comfort and function and aesthetics, would you like to know what that looks like? And almost 100% of them said yes. And I go, then what I need to do is get you back, and we're going to take some impressions and some photographs and probably a few more x-rays. And then we'll sit down one more time after that and talk about how we would go about that and what your options are. But you're in charge. It's your mouth. It's your decision. I'm working for you. Now, of those people that followed through, 2 out of 10 said yes to, I'm not going to say full mouth, but comprehensive care. And of those 2, one of them fell off after they found out how much it cost or what their insurance wouldn't go pay. And what it boiled down to was I did about 10 more big cases a year than it was doing by using that approach.
Mm-hmm.
And much like Ashley Ladder will teach you, that's not hard. That's not selling. It's just elegantly exposing people to what can be done.
That's great. Thank you for that. Okay, so then we get down really to the last two parts of conferences. And I know you've talked about many of these people, but we have an awards ceremony. And we can elaborate on some, or we can just kind of run through some real quick. Professional awards. I think you've touched on all these people.
I won't go into detail, but Dennis Wells he's about 10 years younger than me, but I've learned more about cosmetic dentistry from him than anybody else. And of course, L.D. Pankey was a great influence on me personally and through the books he wrote. John Coyce I've gotten to know personally, and I like to say, educationally, when John Coyce speaks, it resonates with me and I learn more. And Mark Willis was my master lab technician for the last 15 years of my practice, and we did a lot of beautiful work together.
Great.
On the personal level, I'm going to give an award to my wife, Diane Bernstein, who stuck in there with me for 33 years of marriage and worked with me for 26 years of it. And to the two people who became my bosses, John Whittemore and Todd Gruen, who are great dentists on their own right. And as mentors, I'm going to say my dad, Eugene Bernstein, who died in '98, but influenced me a lot through my whole life. Always encouraging, always telling me I could accomplish anything I wanted to.
What was his profession?
He was a tax attorney.
Mm-hmm.
Dennis Wells, I will give another award to, because he's always, no matter what the question was, he's always made time and been there for me and was my primary mentor through the accreditation process. A gentleman named Clint Hardin was a real estate developer and taught me a lot of my real estate projects I ran by him. He's in his 90s now, not getting around too well, but he built a lot of buildings up and down Poplar, possibly this building. And Coleman Orr is now deceased, and he taught me a whole lot about human communication and motivation and how to relate to people.
That's great. And what you've left with Dr. Whittemore and Dr. Gruen have picked up from you and maintained, and they're just keeping it going. They're so wonderful at it. And they both are just such genuine human beings that it just helps out. They were fortunate to come in with you, and you were fortunate to get them also. And that doesn't always work out that way, right?
More often not.
Mm-hmm. I'm very fortunate to have Dr. Lydia here.
Most days.
No, every day. Okay, we're at the farewell dinner. And I was asking you what we want to serve and everything, and you had said the menu really doesn't matter. It's about the camaraderie. And I get that sense after talking with you for a couple hours that I know you feel that genuinely. Retirement. So you're in your, future. How do you envision your future with retirement and everything? And then what kind of final words do you have to say at our farewell dinner speech for our conference?
Sure. Well, I'm loving retirement. I'm very fortunate. I know some people retire and have nothing to do and get depressed or bored, but I'm having a great time and get up and have coffee with my wife every morning and go to the gym every single day, stay there about 3 hours and talk to a lot of the men and women who are older than me. They're sitting at the coffee table after I get through working out and seek their wisdom. And I'm still teaching a little bit, probably about 6 times a year. Go out of town, 2 or 3 of those, and still consulting a little bit, and doing some real estate investing. And if anybody that's listening to this would like some guidance on getting involved in real estate investing or any aspect of improving your practice or little issues that you're having, I'm happy for you to reach out to me, and I'll give you my email and phone number in a moment. So for me, again, I said I was a little disappointed in dentistry earlier, but I find that it's become a little bit of a commodity, and like most industries, it's much about the money. But I think there's still, as I said earlier, a niche of people in every community who want excellent dentistry delivered with extreme customer service. And they will gladly pay more for it. And there are enough of those people to keep the doctors who understand this very busy with love and caring and excellence first, as long as they believe it's not about the money, it'll follow later.
Any contact information you want people to have?
Yeah, you can reach me at mbernst1 at comcast.net, or my phone number is 901-497-3508.
So I think we've successfully come across with the name of the conference was Success Through Service and Excellence. I think that you have successfully nailed it. Dr. Lydia, do you have any final thoughts on the matter?
Oh, thank you for coming and for sharing with us. And when we started talking about doing this, we're talking about how at CE conferences, some of the best conversations we have are like conversations with other dentists in the hallways. We just wanted to have a conversation with you like that. So thank you for sharing your time with us.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you very, very much. It was terrific, and I know I learned a lot personally, and I'm sure Dr. Lydia did also, but I'm not going to speak for her. And I'm hoping that we can get some listeners to learn and take away some of these great pearls of wisdom. So thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. My pleasure.